All right, get ready, because today we're diving deep into the fascinating world of biology,
Sounds good.
specifically how living things, especially, multicellular organisms like us humans, exchange all those vital substances with their surroundings.
Yeah, it's really a constant give and take, a delicate dance of survival, if you will.
That's one way to put it.
And we'll see that it's far more complex than just breathing in and out, although that is a big part of it.
Well, let's start with something a bit intriguing, the concept of surface area to volume ratio.
Okay.
So imagine like a teeny tiny cube-shaped mouse next to a giant, also cube-shaped hippopotamus.
Okay, I like where this is going. Cube-shaped animals.
Well, of course, it's a simplification, but it helps illustrate the point, right?
Yeah, and it's a powerful one.
Because when it comes to exchanging substances with the environment, size really matters.
Absolutely.
In fact, our source material actually goes into the math to show how that little mouse has a much higher surface area volume ratio compared to the bulky hippo.
Right.
But why does this ratio matter so much?
Well, think about it. Single-celled organisms, they're so small, they have a large surface area relative to their volume.
Yeah.
And this lets them just rely on simple diffusion across their cell membrane for exchanging things like oxygen and nutrients.
But for us larger multicellular creatures, it's not that straightforward.
No, not at all.
So let me see if I'm getting this right.
Sure.
A single-celled organism is like a tiny shop with one door handling all the deliveries and pickups.
Okay, I like that.
But a complex organism, like a human, is more like a massive warehouse, needing loading docks and conveyor belts, the whole 9 yards,
That is an excellent analogy.
to keep things running smoothly.
Yeah, and those loading docks and conveyor belts you mentioned, those are our specialized organs,
Right?
evolved specifically to handle the exchange of essential substances like oxygen, nutrients, and waste products.
Well, speaking of specialized organs, let's talk about the lungs.
Okay, yeah, the lungs are really a marvel of biological engineering.
And our deep dive today takes us right into the heart of our respiratory system.
So, picture this. You take a deep breath, air enters through your trachea, the windpipe.
Okay.
It then branches into 2 bronchi, each leading to a lung.
And it keeps branching.
Right, yeah.
The bronchi divide into smaller and smaller tubes, like a tree with its roots spreading throughout your lungs.
Exactly.
What are those smaller tubes called again?
Those are the bronchioles.
A bronchiole.
And at the very end of these tiny bronchioles, we find millions upon millions of tiny air sacs called alveoli.
Okay.
This is where the real magic happens, the point of exchange between your body and the air you breathe.
Millions of tiny air sacs. It's hard to even imagine.
It is a lot, yeah.
So how do they actually work?
Well, each alveolus is surrounded by a network of tiny blood vessels called capillaries.
Oh.
Think of it as a bustling marketplace,
Right.
where oxygen from the air you inhale diffuses into your bloodstream, and carbon dioxide, a waste product of your body's processes, moves out to be exhaled. It's a constant, intricate dance of life.
Wow, that's incredible. It really makes you appreciate every breath you take,
It really does.
But what makes these alveoli so good at their job? I mean, it can't just be about having millions of them,
Oh,
right?
you're absolutely right. There's got to be more to it.
There must be more to it.
Efficiency is key, and the alveoli are masters of their craft.
All right, I'm all ears.
So to achieve efficient gas exchange, you need a few crucial features.
What makes for a great gas exchange surface, then?
First, a large surface area is crucial, and those millions of alveoli definitely provide that.
Right.
Second, you need thin walls.
Thin walls, why, though?
Because a short diffusion pathway means things can move in and out quickly and efficiently.
Okay, that makes sense.
And finally, there's the concept of a constantly maintained concentration gradient.
Concentration gradient. Now, that sounds familiar, but could you remind me what that means?
Imagine you spritz perfume in one corner of a room.
Okay.
Eventually, the scent will spread throughout the room, even to the furthest corners.
Yeah.
That's a concentration gradient in action, the perfume molecules moving from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration.
I see.
So it's like a natural push and pull, always working to balance things out.
Right, like it's trying to even everything out.
Exactly. And the same principle applies to oxygen and carbon dioxide moving between your lungs and blood.
Okay.
There's a higher concentration of oxygen in the alveoli compared to the blood in the capillaries.
Okay.
So oxygen naturally diffuses into the blood.
Makes sense.
Conversely, carbon dioxide is more concentrated in the blood, so it diffuses into the alveoli to be exhaled.
So the lungs are constantly working to maintain this gradient, this difference in concentration.
Yeah,
to ensure efficient gas exchange. It's like a finely tuned machine.
Precisely. Each breath brings in fresh, oxygen-rich air and removes carbon dioxide-laden air.
Right.
And the continuous flow of blood through the capillaries helps ensure that concentration difference is always maintained.
So we've got these incredible alveoli working tirelessly to exchange gases.
Yeah, they're amazing.
But you mentioned earlier that there's more to the respiratory system than just the air sacs themselves.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What are some of the other key players?
Well, we're breathing in air from the environment, air that can contain dust, pollen, and all sorts of things we wouldn't want in our lungs.
Yeah, that doesn't sound very pleasant.
It's not, no.
So how do our lungs deal with all that potential gunk?
That's where mucus comes in, a true hero of the respiratory system.
Okay, mucus, interesting.
Yeah, your airways are lined with special cells called goblet cells that produce mucus, a sticky substance that traps those unwanted particles.
Okay.
And then there are cilia,
Cilia.
tiny hair-like structures that constantly beat, sweeping the mucus upwards towards your throat to be swallowed.
So it's like having a miniature cleaning crew working around the clock to keep your lungs clean and clear.
Indeed. And then we have the elastic fibers in your lungs.
Okay.
These fibers are like tiny springs that recoil after being stretched during inhalation, helping you exhale.
It's a brilliant, energy-efficient design.
It really is.
So it's not all about muscle power when it comes to breathing,
Not at all.
but muscles do play a role.
They do.
What do they do?
Well, you have smooth muscle in your airways that helps control their diameter.
Okay.
During exercise, when you need more oxygen, the smooth muscle relaxes, widening the airways to allow for greater airflow.
It's like your body knows exactly what to do to keep up with your demands.
Exactly.
And what about those cartilage rings I've heard about?
Ah, yes.
What purpose do they serve?
Those are essential for support.
Okay.
Imagine your airways as flexible tubes.
Right.
You need something to keep them from collapsing when you breathe in, right?
I would imagine so.
That's where those cartilage rings come in, providing structural integrity to your trachea and bronchi.
I see.
So like the scaffolding that keeps everything open and functioning.
It's amazing how all these different components work together seamlessly to make breathing possible. It's a true symphony of biological processes.
It really is, yeah.
But I'm curious about the actual act of breathing now, the mechanics of taking a breath in and letting it out.
Yeah.
How does that work exactly?
Well, let's break down the mechanics of breathing.
Okay.
We know that breathing involves two main actions: inspiration, which is breathing in,
Right.
and expiration, breathing out.
Okay.
And these actions are controlled by specific muscles.
So there's more to it than just our lungs inflating and deflating.
Absolutely. Your diaphragm,
Okay.
a dome-shaped muscle below your lungs, and your intercostal muscles, located between your ribs, are the key players in this process.
So how do these muscles orchestrate the act of breathing? Walk me through a single breath.
Okay, so imagine this. You decide to take a breath.
Okay.
Your diaphragm contracts, flattening out, and your intercostal muscles contract, pulling your rib cage upwards and outwards.
So it's like expanding the space in your chest to make room for the incoming air.
Precisely. This increase in volume lowers the air pressure inside your lungs compared to the air outside. And because air naturally moves from high pressure to low pressure...
It rushes in.
Exactly.
So inspiration is driven by muscle power, creating that pressure difference that draws air into the lungs.
You got it. Now let's move on to expiration.
Okay.
Your diaphragm and intercostal muscles relax, causing your rib cage to move down and inwards and your diaphragm to return to its dome shape.
So the space in your chest shrinks, squeezing the air out.
Exactly. The volume decreases, the pressure inside your lungs increases, and air flows out.
Okay.
And here's the fascinating part. Expiration, unlike inspiration, is usually a passive process.
What does that mean?
It means it doesn't require active muscle contraction.
Wow.
Your lungs naturally recoil, like a stretched rubber band snapping back to its original shape.
Wow, that's so efficient.
It is, right.
But I'm realizing that we've been talking about breathing in general terms.
Sure.
I'm curious about the actual volumes of air involved.
Okay.
The source material mentioned terms like tidal volume and vital capacity.
Yeah.
What do those mean exactly?
Well, think of tidal volume as the volume of air you breathe in and out during a normal, relaxed breath.
Okay.
It's typically around half a liter or so.
So every time we breathe, we're moving about half a liter of air in and out of our lungs.
Exactly.
What about vital capacity?
Vital capacity is a bit different. It's the maximum volume of air you can inhale and exhale forcefully.
Okay.
Think of it like taking the deepest breath you possibly can, followed by the strongest exhale you can muster.
Ah, I see. So tidal volume is our everyday breathing.
Yeah.
while vital capacity is a measure of our maximum lung capacity.
Exactly.
It's amazing to think about how much air our lungs can actually hold.
It really is a testament to the incredible design of our respiratory system.
Yeah.
And then there's breathing rate, which is simply the number of breaths you take per minute.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But how do scientists actually measure all these breathing parameters? I imagine they have some pretty cool tools to delve into the intricacies of our breath.
They certainly do.
What kinds of tools?
Well, one of the most fascinating tools in their arsenal is called a spirometer.
Spirometer. Okay.
It's a device that allows scientists to get a detailed picture of someone's breathing patterns.
A spirometer. How does that work?
No lasers or anything like that,
Okay.
but it is quite ingenious.
Okay.
A spirometer consists of an oxygen-filled chamber with a movable lid.
Okay, I'm picturing a sealed container with a lid that can move up and down.
Yeah, exactly. What happens next?
The person being tested breathes in and out through a tube connected to this chamber.
Okay.
As they inhale, they draw oxygen from the chamber, causing the lid to move down.
Okay.
And when they exhale, the air they breathe out goes back into the chamber, pushing the lid up.
So the lid's movements are directly linked to the person's breathing pattern.
Yeah,
That's pretty clever.
it is. And these movements are recorded by a pen attached to the lid, which draws a line on a rotating drum.
So like a physical graph.
Exactly. And this creates a graph called a spirometer trace. So scientists can literally see your breathing patterns as wavy lines on a graph. That's amazing.
It is quite remarkable.
So what can you tell from it?
Well, they can use that graph to measure tidal volume, vital capacity, breathing rate, and even oxygen consumption.
Wow, so much information hidden within those squiggly lines. I'm eager to learn more about how scientists decipher all that data,
We too.
but I think we've covered a lot of ground for now.
Indeed, we've embarked on quite the journey through the respiratory system today. From the smallest alveoli to the mechanics of each breath, it's a fascinating world of intricate processes working in perfect harmony.
Absolutely. We've only just begun to scratch the surface of this incredible biological system, and there's much more to explore.
So much more.
We'll take a short break and be back soon to delve even deeper into the wonders of breathing.
Sounds good.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the fascinating world of respiration.
It's great to be back.
We've been exploring the intricate structure of the lungs and how those amazing alveoli work tirelessly to exchange gases. But now I'm really eager to learn more about how scientists actually measure all those breathing parameters we talked about.
Yeah, well, we left off talking about the spirometer.
Right.
That ingenious device that lets scientists visualize and measure our breath.
Yes.
Remember those wavy lines on the spirometer trace?
They do.
Each peak represents a breath in, and each trough represents a breath out.
It's fascinating how something as simple as a moving lid can reveal so much about our breathing patterns.
Absolutely.
So how do scientists actually use those traces to make sense of it all?
Well, let's say we're looking at a spirometer trace that shows someone's breathing over a minute.
Okay.
By simply counting the number of peaks, we can determine their breathing rate.
Oh, that makes sense.
If we see 10 peaks in that minute,
Yeah.
we know the person is taking 10 breaths per minute.
So it's like counting the rhythm of their breath.
Exactly.
What about those other parameters we discussed, like tidal volume and vital capacity?
Right.
How do those show up on the graph?
Okay, well, let's start with tidal volume. The amount of air inhaled and exhaled in a normal breath. On the spirometer trace, tidal volume is represented by the height of each peak.
Okay.
The distance between the top of a peak and the bottom of the following trough tells us how much air is being moved with each breath.
So a taller peak would indicate a larger tidal volume,
Yes.
meaning the person is taking deeper breaths.
Exactly.
What about vital capacity?
So, to determine vital capacity,
Yeah.
we need to look at the entire trace and find the highest peak and the lowest trough.
Okay.
The difference between those 2 points represents the maximum amount of air the person can exhale after taking the deepest possible breath.
It's like finding the biggest wave on the graph.
Exactly.
So we've got breathing rate and tidal volume and vital capacity. What about oxygen consumption?
Right, so oxygen consumption is a bit trickier to measure directly from the trace,
Yep.
but the spirometer does give us clues.
How so?
Well, remember how the spirometer works? The person inhales oxygen from a chamber, and that chamber is equipped with soda lime to absorb the carbon dioxide they exhale.
Right, so the overall volume of gas in the chamber should decrease over time as the person uses up oxygen for respiration.
Precisely.
Yeah.
By analyzing the overall downward slope of the spirometer trace, scientists can estimate how much oxygen is being consumed over a specific period.
It's incredible how much information is packed into those seemingly simple wavy lines.
It really is.
Why is it so important for scientists to measure all these breathing parameters?
Well, spirometers are used in a variety of settings, from hospitals to research labs.
Okay.
They help doctors and scientists assess lung function, diagnose respiratory problems, monitor the effectiveness of treatments,
I see.
and even understand how our lungs adapt to different situations, like exercise.
Now that you mention exercise, I'm curious about how our breathing changes when we exert ourselves physically.
Sure.
We know our muscles need more oxygen when we're working hard, so how does our respiratory system keep up with that increased demand?
That's a great question, and it leads us to another amazing aspect of respiration,
Okay.
how our breathing adapts to the changing needs of our bodies.
Okay.
Remember those smooth muscles we talked about?
Yeah.
The ones that control the diameter of our airways?
Yes. You mentioned that they relax during exercise to allow for greater airflow.
Exactly. So when we exercise,
Yeah.
our muscles are working harder, demanding more oxygen to fuel their activity.
Right.
And as they burn that fuel, they produce more carbon dioxide as a waste product.
So our body needs to get rid of that extra carbon dioxide
Yeah.
and deliver more oxygen to keep everything running smoothly.
Exactly.
And how does it do that?
Our respiratory system rises to the challenge.
Okay.
Our breathing rate increases, meaning we take more breaths per minute.
So we breathe faster.
Yeah, but it's not just about breathing faster. The depth of our breaths also increases.
Oh, okay.
Our tidal volume goes up, so we're taking in more air with each breath. This combination of faster breathing and deeper breaths allows us to get more oxygen into our lungs and ultimately to our working muscles.
So it's like our body shifts gears, increasing both the speed and volume of air intake.
You could say that.
How does it know to do that, though?
Well, all these adjustments are orchestrated by our nervous system.
Oh, wow.
It constantly monitors the levels of oxygen and carbon dioxide in our blood and makes lightning-fast adjustments to our breathing to keep everything in balance.
Amazing.
It's a remarkable system of feedback and regulation,
Yeah,
ensuring that our bodies have the resources they need, even under demanding conditions.
that's incredible. I think that all this is happening without us even consciously controlling it.
I know, it's amazing.
Our bodies are truly amazing machines.
They really are.
And we've covered a lot of ground today, haven't we?
We have.
We've explored the amazing structure of our lungs, from the tiniest alveoli to the muscles that power our breath.
Why?
We've learned how scientists measure and analyze our breathing patterns. And we've even touched upon how our bodies adapt to keep us going when we push ourselves physically.
It's been quite the journey.
It has. And as you continue to learn about biology, you'll find that even the seemingly mundane processes of our bodies are filled with wonder and complexity.
Absolutely.
So keep those brains buzzing and join us next time as we continue to uncover the fascinating secrets of the biological world. You know, it's really amazing how much we've learned about something as essential as breathing.
It is, isn't it?
Like we went from those tiny alveoli to the mechanics behind every breath we take,
Right?
and even how scientists use that spirometer to analyze our breathing patterns.
Yeah, and it really highlights just how complex our bodies truly are.
It does.
As we wrap up this deep dive, though,
Yeah.
I want to leave you with something to think about.
Okay.
So think about how your breathing changes when you exercise.
Okay.
Why do you think your breathing rate and tidal volume increase when your body's working harder? What's going on at a cellular level to drive those changes?
That's a great question to keep in mind as you continue to explore biology.
Absolutely.
Our bodies are incredibly adaptable machines,
They are.
constantly responding to internal and external cues
Right.
to keep everything balanced.
That's the beauty of it all.
Yeah.
There's always more to discover,
Always
more layers to peel back.
more mysteries to unravel.
Exactly.
So stay curious and keep those questions coming.
Definitely.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into the fascinating world of science.